Good evening. Hopefully you can all hear me. Welcome to Trinity Tuesday, a Trinity Tuesday special. Trinity Tuesdays are the spaces that we at Trinity Church are trying to use to explore some of life's biggest questions, some of the big ideas, and some of the big things we believe, some of the questions that people have. My name's Rob. I'm one of the leaders of the church at Trinity Church, and it's a great delight to have you with us tonight, whoever you are, wherever you're joining from, whatever you're watching on, whether it's Facebook live stream or YouTube. Thanks for connecting with us as we explore some of these big ideas. There's a famous quote from a man called C.S. Lewis that says, Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, it's of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. And Trinity Tuesday, sometimes we've been thinking about the truthfulness of Christianity, and sometimes we've been thinking about the importance. And tonight, as we get a great opportunity to think about the importance of Christianity, and we're going to do that through what I hope is going to be a really fun way. We're going to be thinking about a film that hopefully many of you who are watching have watched called Lion. And so we're going to be thinking about this film, and we're going to be exploring this film with some of my friends from Trinity Church. So we're going to have some different faces. We're going to have some different ideas expressed. We're going to be talking that through, sharing with each other, sharing ideas. So hopefully it's going to be really, really exciting. We're really pleased that you can join us. The way we're going to do it then is, in a moment, I'm going to introduce tonight's panel. We're going to introduce them, just hear a little bit about them. Then we're going to have a little bit of a chat through the film, Lion. I've got some burning questions that I really want to ask them. I know these guys watch films. I know they enjoy watching films, and I know they've watched this film. So I want to just ask them some of those burning questions and get to the heart of some of the real amazing stuff that was going on in that film, Lion. And then what we'll do is, just for 2 or 3 minutes, we'll take a short break, maybe 2/3 of the way through, maybe 3/4 of the way through. And in that time, if you've got any comments or questions for the panel, or just comments, what did you think about the film? We'd love you to be sending them in throughout. So do send them in on YouTube comments, Facebook Live, or if you've got my number, then text me. And then I'm going to ask the final $1 million question to the panel that I'm going to save till later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen now, and we're going to hopefully see lots of other smiling faces who have joined me tonight. So we'd love to just introduce you so people know who is speaking, who's sharing these ideas tonight. Firstly, we've got Holly. Holly, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good start. It's good to have you with us. Good that you can join us tonight. Holly, we know your name now, but can you just tell us a bit more about who you are and what you're doing in life? I know you're probably locked down, but what would you normally be doing? Do you want
I'm currently studying for a veterinary degree at Bristol University in my 4th year now, so I've got 2 more years left. But yeah, home in Scarborough for the time being. So it's been a bit of a change, but yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. I saw someone on Facebook the other day who'd come across a Paulie squirrel, and I thought of you because I thought they didn't know what to do. I think they rang the NSPCA, if I said that right. And I thought, well, Holly would, if she was there, she'd have been able to help. Holly, so you're at Bristol Uni, and there's just very quickly, something big has happened in your life recently that's probably worth sharing briefly. Do you want to just say what that is and how that happened briefly?
Yeah, so I became a Christian about a year ago, and that was at university. I didn't really know about who Jesus was before. I never really thought of how much Christianity, how it could be significant to my life. And then I met a friend at uni who is a Christian, and she invited me along to some Christian Union events, and we just had discussions between us. I was really open to finding out more. Especially after seeing how she and so many other people at uni were so convicted of their faith in Jesus. Yeah, I was just really inquisitive, and then I just found that the claims that Jesus makes, I found them to be true, so I decided to follow Jesus.
Fantastic. That's great. So you kind of got to know them, asked questions, and found that you thought, this is reasonable. This makes sense. It's brilliant. That's great.
Yeah, definitely.
It's great, and it's great to have you with us. And I guess that's one of the big things we're trying to do with Trinity Tuesday, just open up some of those conversations, much like you got the opportunity at Bristol Uni. We just want other people online to have that opportunity as well as we think stuff through. So, well, thanks for joining us tonight. We look forward to hearing what you've got to say. I'm going to go over to Johnny. Johnny, this is your second appearance on Trinity Tuesday. Do you want to tell us a bit about who you are, what you're doing, where you're living at the moment, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm currently a junior doctor at Scarborough. I change jobs every 4 months. So at the moment I'm doing obs and gynae. So please don't have any babies for the next month, please, because you'll get me. So yeah, and I've been in Scarborough for about a year, but then I'm moving on to do surgical training in August in Sheffield. So yeah. That's
great. So you begin to heading off to Sheffield where there's poly squirrels.
I'm moving to Holly.
That's great. It's good to have you with us, and it's good to know that we have people like you in Scarborough looking after us, keeping us safe when we get ill. And trust me, I'd rather trust you than me when that kind of stuff. So thanks for that. You're a member of Trinity Church at the moment, which is great, and you've been a massive blessing to us. We've loved getting to know you. As a doctor, and as a Christian, as kind of a medical professional, just in this time of coronavirus, have you had any kind of reflections, things you've thought about, things you've learned? Maybe just mention, I don't know, something that's come across your mind recently.
I mean, to be fair, I've had a lot of thoughts, but I think the one thing that came out of this, especially at the beginning, when there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of death in the initial few weeks, was just the mortality, like our mortality, and how fragile life is. And I think a lot of time as doctors, it's easy to kind of feel like, we know everything, we can save lives, we can do all this stuff. But I think the first few months and weeks where we had no vaccine, we had no hope for anything, it was just the fact that we're actually quite limited in what we can do. And I think more than ever, there was just a need for God help kind of thing, like a cry out, because so technology can fail you, medicine can fail you, so there is definitely a need for someone higher than us, because there's so much as we can do as humans. So yeah, I think that was the first thing that really struck me at the beginning of the whole COVID.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And massive respect to you all. And I know we've got quite a few doctors and nurses and all kinds of medical staff are doing great things in all a variety of ways at our church. So I've got to know lots, but a huge respect to you all. I think there's massive pressure, but you're right, kind of, even then, with all of your amazing learning and skills, there's that sense of, whoa, we need something more. We need God. We do. That's great. It's really helpful. And we're going to just quickly move on. We're going to go over to Adam, who is kind of being sent here, I think, to keep an eye on us, the granddad of the group. I'm going to call you Adam, but I'm going to get in trouble for that. You're not old. That's the thing, Adam. You're not old. That's the funny thing. You're not old, but you're older than
that kind of responsibility, Rob.
You're older than me, and so you're gonna have to keep an eye on proceedings. But Adam, who are you? What do you do? I know all about you, but who are you? What do you do? Where are you living at the moment?
I am Adam. I live in Scarborough with my wife Nicola and our 3 children, and I teach and play music for a living.
And you do it very well. You might not want to add because you have humility, but you do it very well. You're a very talented musician. In fact, the first date, I got married in Scarborough. The first date that I had with my wife, before we were even kind of going out or whatever you want to call it, was watching you play in a jazz venue. Well, I say a venue. You were playing jazz in a venue in Scarborough. So there you go. There was something about the magic of your piano playing that brought us together. So it's a beautiful story.
I think
Adam,
remember.
Sorry, it's very good. You remember? Good. It was all down to you. Just tell us quickly then. I know you're a member of Trinity Church Scarborough. I just want to share quickly at the beginning what makes it worth it for you. Life as a Christian. Anything?
Yes. Love, hope, community, intellectual satisfaction, creativity.
Wow, that is great. Yeah, we'll leave it there. That's fantastic. just a few thoughts for people to ponder. But yeah, that's wonderful. And thanks for that, Adam. That's great. And so we're gonna crack on. We're gonna think about this film. This what I think is an incredible film. And when we chose it, I wasn't sure what to make of it, but after watching it, it's just incredible. Why are we even talking about a film tonight? I just think films are great for multiple reasons. I don't watch loads of films myself, actually, but I know lots of people who do. And I just find films, they entertain us. That's obvious, isn't it? But they do more than that. Films help us kind of escape. I know for lots of us, life is stressful. There's lots going on in life. And you watch a film and often you can escape, can't you? You can get away from your world and into another world. Sometimes you can go into a fantasy world, sometimes a world that really exists, but it's not part of your experience. So it just takes us out, which is cool. And then also, and I think really importantly, films engage us in stories, but they engage us in stories not just with bare facts, but emotionally. And I think one of the big things, and I'm going to push on this a little bit later on, is the emotions that come out of this film that we saw. It engages with this story, but it does so in a way that takes our thoughts and our feelings just so much deeper, which is really helpful. So the storyline for the film, let's just walk through it. You guys, I'm going to ask the first question in a second, but you guys are going to tell me if I get this right or wrong. I'm just going to do this to remind people of what's gone on, and so hopefully we're going to see on the screen a couple of pictures just to take us back in time. Here we go. Hopefully it's going to work. Oh, it's not going to work. We'll try again now. Here we go. We're going to work. It's going to work. We think we're sharing now. We've got it working. The film Lion. Maybe it's not working. Maybe it's not working. Okay, we'll just leave that for now. I'm just going to talk to you about the film. You're going to tell me if I do a good job. It's about Saru. It's a real story, and it's about Saru. I think he's the protagonist. I think he's the central character. Saru grows up in this place called Ganesh Talai, which is a suburb of a place called Kwanda, and then that is in a state of India called Madhya Pradesh. And I've got Indian friends at church who are going to tell me, I know they're from a totally different part of India, but they might tell me if I get that close or wrong. He grows up with his mum, his brother, his sister. His father leaves early on. We don't even meet him in the film, but he kind of leaves them in poverty. And because of that, his older brother, Gudu, one of his brothers, kind of goes out to work, as I understand from watching the film, and he's looking for work. And on one occasion, he takes his brother with him, his young brother, Saru, with him. And this is where the storyline seems to kind of kick off. He heads off on the train, and he leaves Gudu leaves his little brother, Saru, in the station. And then Saru wakes up. He's just tired, he's sleepy, he wakes up. He looks around, his brother's not there. He's in a different part of the country. He doesn't know it. He gets lost. He goes looking around the station, can't find him. He goes onto a train parked in the station, can't find him, falls asleep. And then tragedy, the train sets off. And then Saru is on this terrifying journey, 1,000 miles he's taken from Ganesh Talai, this small village in India, 1,000 miles from kind of in the middle of India, right across the West Bengal, Calcutta. And as he gets there, he's totally lost now, 1,000 miles away. He doesn't speak Bengali, the language. He only speaks Hindi, so most people speak Bengali. He can't communicate. He's only 5 years old. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so then he's just entered into this world of hopelessness, and no one's helping him, and he can't get out. He can't find his way home. And we're seeing these glimmers of hope mixed with horrible scenes that sicken us in the middle of the film, just horrible stuff going on. Glimmers of hope. Is he going to be saved? And eventually he's picked up off the streets. He's taken to an orphanage, and eventually he ends up being adopted by this Australian family, who then for the second half of the film raise him, and they just raise him up as their own. But I guess the last thing I'll say in summary is there's always this nagging feeling going on that his home is not in Australia. His home is somewhere else. And so then he sets off on this great search for the home, and an incredible, we maybe talk about that later, just how he finds home, because he has a memory of a 5-year-old in a country that's huge. He can't even pronounce the name of the place rightly where he's from. He's totally lost. and yet his incredible pursuit of the truth of where he's from leads him back home. Have I done a good enough job there? Is that all right? Would you add anything?
No.
Great. Okay. Well, enough from me then. We're bored of my voice already. What I want to do is I want to ask you the first question just about this film. I want to just get your first impressions. Johnny, I'm going to start with you if that's all right. What did you enjoy about the film, and what did you maybe not enjoy, but maybe you just enjoyed it? Tell us, what did you think?
I like the fact that it was a true story. I mean, I kind of like that and I don't like that at the same time. The reason I don't like that is the fact that there is a definite ending. We know how it ends. So you can't really change the storyline because it's happened, it's real. But I also like the fact that it's a real story because it means that someone lived this life. And I think because of that, I felt like I kind of connected with it a lot more. And the storyline was very simple. It was just the simplicity of it kind of made you hone in on the main themes, which is obviously adoption, story of a mother and son, kind of like poverty, and then obviously identity. So I think because it was very simple, those themes were very easy to kind of really delve into. So I think the storyline was amazing. But yeah, and the characters were also really good, but obviously I'll let someone else talk about the characters. But yeah,
that's great. That's great. Anything you didn't like, or are you happy to leave it there?
I think that the first half was very, like, there are some scenes that were not very nice, especially the part where he obviously thinks this woman is going to save him, is going to take him to find his mom. And then I think the scene that I really don't like is when this man then walks in on the bed and just kind of looking at him and trying to assess if, he's going to be good for what they need him for. And the whole scene, how they were looking at this little boy, and he was just so tiny. That just made me cringe. And yeah, that's probably the worst scene for me.
Yeah. No, that's that. I was going to say that's good. I mean, it is horrible, but yeah, that's a good answer, because there are those parts in there that's, and it's real. And some of that stuff it's in a film, but it's real life as well, isn't it?
It's real, exactly. And to know that it's real makes it even more heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Let's go to Holly. Holly, what did you enjoy about the film? Just headline things. What maybe did you not enjoy so much?
Actually, I think this is probably controversial, but I actually really liked the fact that it had subtitles at the start, like for the first half of it. I don't know, it just made it seem like more authentic, and you could like connect more and really like immerse yourself in the storyline. And yeah, and just like it kind of like brought to light just how real it was, and like just like how shocking like it is that this all happened. So yeah, that definitely made it just that next level of like yeah.
I guess with the subtitles, people find it distances. Some people will find it distances themselves. You've got to read subtitles in a film, and no one wants to do that. But on the other hand, like you're saying, it takes you into the reality of the story. It takes you into this. No, this is actually the substance to this. This isn't made up drama. This is stuff that goes on, and how accurate or not the film is. As we'll see, it is based on a true story. But just the portrayal of even the language is really helpful, I think, just to take us into the place. It's good. Adam, what about you? Things you enjoyed, things you didn't enjoy? Did you enjoy the film at all?
I did enjoy it very much. I would firstly echo what Johnny and Holly both said. And also, I just think as a film, it was beautifully shot. And beautifully acted. I thought, the cinematography was amazing. You get the sort of shots as he's traveling on the train of the sunset, and it opens with that. I think it's right near the beginning. There's a beautiful shot of him surrounded by, I think it's butterflies or something like that, the little boy. And I thought to get those kind of heart-wrenching performances out of very young actors was incredible as well. So I just thought it was a brilliant film.
Yeah, that's great. The kind of the setting of the film and some of those shots, you get both, don't you? You get the real beauty, and it kind of is a reflection of the story. You get the beauty and you get the brokenness together.
Yeah,
and you see some just heart-wrenching stuff. Some scenes that I don't want to see that, but then you see the beauty of it.
part of the beauty of it as a film is that it communicates the horror of the situation to you also in a very understandable and direct way.
Yeah.
It's part of the success of the film, I think. Like what Johnny was saying earlier about the scene with the false sort of savior. It's horrible, but it's extremely well done.
Yeah.
And it's not sort of exploitative or anything like that. It's just, it communicates enough for you to know.
That's really helpful. Let's on that thought then, on that scene, because there is that scene where there's this lady Noor, she's Noor. Again, I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but she meets him on the train track and takes him in, and just you think, and even at that point, I'm so naive when it comes to films because I should be knowing that this is not gonna be good, but you just go, that's going to be good, something good is going to come from that. Sorry, we're just making sure we're not going to lose power here. Don't know what's happened with our power. But yeah, you're there and you're thinking, oh great. And what scenes impacted you emotionally the most? I'm going to be deadly honest with you. As we were watching this, my wife was so happy. Emma was so happy because she turned to me at one point, and in my face and streaming down my face was tears, and she loved it because she said, "You cry at films. You're not the monster that I thought I married. You have a heart." So she was delighted. But what scenes impacted you emotionally? What got you? There's all kind of emotions. But let's go back to you and tell us what kind of scenes got you the most in one way or the other.
Well, only 2 films have ever made me almost cry, although I'll always say it was something that was in my eye, actually, not real.
Yeah, always.
And they both have similar themes, actually. So this one, when the reunion with his family at the end, obviously, it was the big emotional sort of impact moment. But it's very similar to, there's a really old children's film, actually, from the 70s called The Railway Children. And at the end, this young girl comes running down the platform shouting, "Daddy, Daddy," as she sees her daddy who's been away for a long time. And so it's a very similar kind of thing. Both of those moments really impacted upon me. But for Lion, it was definitely the reunion with the family. I mean, there was other scenes as well that stick with me. So like the opening shot of him surrounded by the butterflies, some of the shots of him walking down the dark tunnels, when he's looking for Gadoo, and the kind of negative emotion of the scene we've already talked about, with the people who he thought were going to rescue him. But it's that the ending scene, I think. Some of the scenes as well with his adopted brother, very emotionally powerful.
Well, I'm pleased you've started us with the positives, the kind of reunion, the positive emotions there. And I think, am I right in saying that happens twice, isn't it? Am I right in saying, because you see it in the film, but then you see it, they show the actual true reunion. And I looked this up as well. What you see in the film is actually the first time the 2 mothers, the adoptive mother and the biological mother, meet. That wasn't acted, made up. That was the real first time, as far as I can see. And that's what happened. So let's start positive. Let's go to Holly. Which scenes got you? Unless you're just really hard, stony heart. I don't know. Did any of the scenes get you?
There were a lot, to be fair. Like I just have a long list in my head, but I think the one in the train station when he first got lost. Well, when he got to the other end, and it's really busy, and he's just shouting and trying to find someone to help him, and going up to the desk and trying to book his ticket back home, and no one understands him, and everyone's just pushing him to the side, and my heart was going out to him. I was like, oh, I just want to go and pick him up and help him. It's just tough to watch. And then also the one when he's with the adoption worker at the orphanage or whatever it is, and he's saying, did you really look for my parents? Did you actually try and find them? And just oh.
You picked that out. I remember talking to you about that. You picked that out, and I didn't really click on that. But I think one of the things you were saying is did they actually look for parent. And I was, maybe I'm again just naive. I'm just so naive, but I'm thinking, yeah, they tried, but did they? Did they really try? That leaves the question open, doesn't it? And just heartbreaking, the helplessness. And go on, Johnny. What scenes that got to you in different ways?
I think like Holly, I have quite a few, and the one that you mentioned as well, I was like, oh my God. I think for me, weirdly actually, is in the second half when he's obviously trying to find home, and then he finally finds home and then goes to his mother, Sue, his Australian mother, and she's really broken at this point because of, Saru's brother being, quite a lot to handle and things like that. And he basically tells her that I didn't want to tell you because I thought you would think I'm ungrateful. And obviously I wish you had your own children because we come with baggage, we're not a clean slate. We have all these things that we bring to the table. And then she tells him for the first time that actually I could have kids, but we chose to have you. And that just got me, because I'm just like, it's that moment he realizes that actually she wanted him, like, his unconditional love from her, and then nothing he could do could actually, make her love him any less. And yeah, I just think Nicole Kidman is amazing in that scene. And I think that kind of pure moment of mother and son just kind of talking and being really honest about things. And then she also mentioned about the vision that she had when she was a child, of this brown boy who came to her, and essentially that's the only thing that saved her from killing herself. So it's this thing of purpose. Her purpose was him, essentially. That really got me. Yeah.
That's good. And just that what you said as well about that when he says, it becomes clear that they just chose to adopt. They just wanted to help. And then for her then to experience what she experienced when he does have a mother and he's found them. I mean,
yeah,
just almost kind of this. I could appreciate there might be a lot of emotions going on in both mothers, in that whole thing, but just the way they went about that, seemed to be really honourable in many ways. And I could see there's a lot of emotions. There was one that I'm gonna share on this one because, as I say, I'm not going to lie, it got to me. The scene for me was when he's on the train, and when he's first lost and he's been travelled, he's been taken by this train 1,000 miles away, and he can't get out the train's not stopping. And at one point he looks out between the slits and he sees this girl on the side, and he says, save me. And I think this is heartbreaking, because as he says, save me, he looks at someone who needs saving herself. I felt that, because I just felt the hopelessness. At this point, it's a film of great hope, but at this point, you see the hopelessness, what feels like hopelessness. Save me. Well, the girl needs saving herself. Someone, come on, help. just be there. There's loads. Let's this is really helpful, because we've kind of as we share some of those scenes, we start to just dig a little deeper into what I would describe as some of the big themes of the film. And what I found striking about this film Lion is that so many of the themes are so real and important in life. They mean so. I think this is why it just grabs our emotions, because these themes that we're exploring are things that we all long for, that we all want in life, or that we hate in life in a good way. But we seem to have these desires. What are some of the themes then? And how did we kind of see them played out? If you could maybe say one if you want, or maybe say a couple of the themes that you just felt were the most key, and we'll just see where we get. Let's start. I'm going to start, if it's all right. Can we go to Holly this time? What kind of stood out for you as kind of being the central themes?
Just like the search for home and the search for truth as well, not just home, because obviously with his adopted family, he's kind of living a lie, as it were, and he wants to find out who he truly is, like where he truly comes from, and how he's trying to think about how he truly fits into the world. And he's trying to do that obviously by finding his home.
Yeah, that's helpful. What is it about home that it's just inbuilt into us, isn't it? Into his home. And as I say this, I know people listening have come from all kinds of homes, and some of us have experienced bad homes and broken homes, and to one degree or another. But we feel that, don't we? There's something about desiring a good, healthy home that is kind of inbuilt into us. I just remember when I lived in London, and this is a silly example. This is not a story like Saru's story, but just the feeling I'd get when I'd be coming back from London on the train to Hull, where I'm from. You can't tell by my accent anymore, but that's where I grew up. And I'd see the Humber Bridge, crossing the Humber, and maybe I was coming back for the rugby or something like that. And I'd just feel, sometimes I'd just be a little bit emotional about the whole thing. I've been in London for 3 months, and I'm coming back, and I'm like, this is where home is. This is where the people, and it's not just the place, it's the people. I go, but yeah, that's helpful, Holly, because I just think there's something in that we just want. Let's go, Adam. What, maybe one big theme or a couple of things that you just thought really stood out?
Yeah, so definitely that idea of homecoming, but also the idea of sort of desire and restlessness and that kind of thing. So I think I mentioned to you before that it reminded me of, I'm going to get the quote wrong, but I'll paraphrase Augustine, which is, we're restless till we find ourselves in you. And that was kind of one of the big themes that it made me think of, that he had this sort of feeling of restlessness, this idea that he couldn't get rid of, that he wasn't where he ought to be, and he needed to find his real home. And his desire was so strong that he went to such great lengths to find his family. But also the other theme that it sort of made me think of was there's a quote by C.S. Lewis where he talks about how, so our hunger for food that we experience is matched by the reality of food existing. And it made me think of that his desire to find a place, which I think resonates very much with the Christian story, is matched by there's an actual reality to that desire. There's a fulfillment to that. There's a teleological sort of endpoint, a goal that he's heading towards, which is to be home with his family. So those were the big themes that it made me think of.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and we'll kind of come here now. Now I'll come to Johnny on this point as well, or on another similar point. But yeah, there's that sense that there's these in the film, there's these inbuilt desires and things that I want. I'll talk about some of the things I felt in a second as well. But then as a Christian, I'm looking and I'm going, hang on, what I'm wanting here, well, so much of what I want is found in the God that I know. And so much of stuff that I know other people watching the film are wanting and feeling is found in the God that I know. Now, look, I'm a Christian, and that's what I believe. I believe God's true, and other people maybe sat here thinking, well, I'm still working that out. But I just think it's helpful to know that the God we believe as Christians is the one who is the fulfillment of a lot of these desires. Johnny, tell us about some of the themes, and maybe you can just go on a little bit as well in a similar vein that Adam's done. What themes stood out to you in the film? But then maybe just as a Christian, how do you see them fulfilled, and how do you see them brought to the fullest expression in the God that you believe in? I think people will be interested to hear just your perspective as a Christian, whatever they make of what you're saying. It's just good to hear, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's two themes. One of them is identity, and the other one is adoption. And I think the identity is, having grown up in Uganda and then till at the age of 10, then coming to England, I think I kind of went through a very, very similar situation with Saru, where you kind of get an identity crisis, where I think it was when he got to uni and they asked him, what team do you support? And he's like, Aussie. And they're like, where are you from? Like Aussie through and through. And you then see him just kind of battling this idea of, I'm Indian, but I'm also Aussie. But at the same time, I don't even know where I'm from, I'm from Kolkata, but we all know that's not where I'm from. So I don't know where I'm from. So I think it's just that point where you feel like the world is telling you what your identity is, and you're trying to find your identity in so many different things, but not really knowing where you belong. So I think that's something that really resonated with me. And I think having gone through something very similar when I got to uni, where I was just like, I'm Ugandan but British, but am I? I really found a lot of my identity in Christ. And it actually reminded me of a song of I Am Who You Say I Am, which I think is sung by Hillsong. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, do you know what? It doesn't matter where I'm from. It doesn't matter where I grew up. Actually, my identity is in Christ, and that's all that matters. So even if everything around me changes, that doesn't change who I am in him. And whoever God says I am. And that was very comforting. So yeah, I think they did the identity theme quite well. And the other one as well is adoption. And obviously the fact that he was adopted by this family who, I think most times when parents adopt children, it's probably because they can't have their own, so they decide to adopt another child. But in this instance, this couple adopted because they just wanted to help, and because they loved these kids, and because that was their purpose. They felt that was their purpose in life. And I think, again, just kind of parallels with Christ, where we adopted, when we become Christian, we adopted into this family, not because God needs us, not because he can't have other people, but purely because he wants us and he loves us. So I think that's why I really like the character of Sue, his Australian mum, because she was just unconditional love, just purely because she loved them. And they could do anything. Like Mantosh, for example, Saru's brother, obviously wasn't the perfect child in a sense, but regardless of what he did, she loved him anyway. And I think for me, that's just, it just reminds me of us being adopted into Christ's, family. So that's really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what it talks about in the book of Ephesians in the New Testament, this idea that because of kind of Jesus' entrance into the world, we can be connected, like we can actually know things about God, and we can be connected to God, we can be reconciled to God. And the Bible talks about that as adoption, and I just think that blows me away. So that connects with the idea of identity, doesn't it? Like adoption, as we're adopted into God's family, we have a Father who loves us, who will never leave us, interestingly, and who's always there. And that is who we are. That's the identity. It's a reconciled. It's a bringing back to God after we've gone away from it, which is it's cool. Holly, just quickly, I just want to come back to you because you opened up that can of worms on home, which is really helpful. Just let me just quote. I think this encapsulated that theme of home for me. When they're on the train tracks, and it is that scene of false salvation, as I think Adam described it as false salvation, and they're on the tracks. This lady Noah comes, and we think she's going to help him, and she says, "What's the matter?" She tries speaking to him. She says, "What's the matter? Don't you understand Bengali?" And he kind of shakes his head, and she says, "Do you understand Hindi and the other language spoken in India?" And he says, "Yes." She says, "Where are you going?" He says, "I have to go home. I am lost." She said, "Did you come from this way or that way?" He says, "I don't know which way." "Then how will you go?" she says. And he just shakes his head because he doesn't know. He doesn't know where home is, and it's heartbreaking. As a Christian, Holly, you know about home. You've got a home. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that? What difference does being a Christian make to what you know and believe to be home? You have a good home. I know where you live, and I know some of your family, and they're wonderful people. I love them. They're great. I don't know them that well, but they're lovely people. You seem to have a great home. But tell us, as a Christian, how home is such a great thing for you.
Yeah, it just creates such a bigger picture, really. Like, even if you're lost, like physically, like Saru is, you know that God's still with you. Like God can never be separated from you, like once you give your life to him. And that's just so great to know, because no matter what happens to you, there's always this bigger love, this bigger sense of belonging. And also, like, through Christianity, you just find this huge, like, bigger family through the church, because we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. We're all out here with the same goal, the same ideals. It really is just like being adopted, like Johnny said, into a big family. So it just really builds on the idea of home, I think. And the promises that Jesus brings, it's like we have this this better home to look forward to. It's not just, you know, that we know this world is so broken and horrible things happen all the time, but we have this home of joy to look forward to in the future, which is really just something that, yeah, it just keeps you going, I think.
Yeah. That's great. There's a verse that comes to mind that Jesus actually says, and it's great to look at what Jesus says. I mean, even the greatest skeptics believe Jesus existed and that he said things. So it's fascinating to know what Jesus said. And Jesus says at one point, and this is after he died on the cross, this is after the resurrection, which is obviously one of the big claims the Bible makes, that Jesus came back to life. No, this is before, the resurrection, but he's on his way to the death and resurrection. He says, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I'm going to come back and take you to be with me in that home. But it's interesting, the focus, and it's really good what you said there, because you talked about kind of the connection with family. And one of the things, as I was thinking about this theme of home, is home isn't a roof, is it? Home isn't just a roof. Home is a relationship. And what you're talking about there, you've got this sense of belonging to family. But then even as we look to the future home that we believe in as Christians, this great place, is what's the greatest joy? Well, maybe you've got visions, incredible visions of, I don't know whether you think of God in the clouds with a grey beard, or maybe you've got grander visions of streets paved with gold, or whatever people think of heaven. What's the real heart of heaven? Well, it's the one who's there. The God who made us and loves us, the God who's perfect, and the God who says, look, come and find your absolute joy in me. And it's a happy home, it's a perfect home, and I just think it's the home we all long for. But as you were talking, then it just brought to mind what Jesus said about home. That's great. What we're going to do, guys, I just thought now is I just want to give people a little bit of space to send in their comments, because I want to know what people watching right now thought of the film. So I'd love to know if they've got comments, if they've got questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause us for probably 2 minutes. I'll put some music on while people nip to the loo, while they pick up their phones, text in their comments, while they go on YouTube or Facebook, or just comment and send us some comments. And I just want to read some of those out, because I'd love to know what people who've watched the film thought. And then I'm going to ask the $1 million question that I've reserved for the end. So people, if you're watching this, thanks for joining us. It's been great so far. Thank you, everybody. I think I've got my my guests back. I think hopefully we're still live streaming. So we just thought we'd come back together for our final few minutes, and for this $1 million question that I need to ask everybody. And this wonderful discussion panel. I've really enjoyed tonight. I've really enjoyed just hearing your thoughts. It's quite fun, actually, just to think through some of these big themes. They're so important. I've loved hearing what you've got to say. Just a couple of things that have come in that people said, and you may, guys on the panel, may like to respond or just agree. But one big comment, someone watched last night, thought it was a great film. Well, that's a good start. Heartbreaking, showing the great love of natural and adoptive parents, as Johnny's been saying, the longing to understand who we are and where our roots are, from then larger topics like poverty as well, but that wanting to know, that restlessness as well in there. They also said that they were looking forward to discussing this in advance, so that's good. So hopefully we've met their desire. And then another one point that really stuck out was when he's running away from the abductors, and how much he wanted to give the boy a hug. I think that's one of the things, and I didn't mention this earlier, but that kind of desire for justice. One of the emotions that I haven't really mentioned tonight that got to me was that sense of, I'm going to mention it now anyway, was that sense of justice. Like at points I'll admit, like clearly I'm quite soft, and I cried, and rightfully so at different points. I was elated at different points, like Adam said, the reunion, but then at other points, like there's genuinely a bit of anger in me. Because I want those people. I want justice. I really do want justice, and there's big questions about why these things happen in the world. And yet, as Christians, one of the ththings that I believe in is I believe in a God of justice, a God who will do right, a God who actually won't let wrongdoing go undealt with. So we think some of these people just get away with murder; they're never brought to justice. And then actually, we believe in a God who is a God of a God of justice, which is amazing, a God of hope, as we've heard about home, a God of love, but a God of justice, which is amazing. And let me just ask this big question then. Thanks to those people who've kind of fed some comments in. Sorry if you've fed in any other comments and we haven't read them out, but we do need to just finish soon. My last $1 million question is, and we've already mentioned a few things, but many people, skeptics, all kinds of people, Christians, all kinds of people look to Jesus quite seriously as one who spoke wisdom into our world, the one who revealed truth into the world, the one who brought real wonderful things into a broken world. Many people look to him, but as Christians, you believe great things about Jesus. You believe he's your savior. You believe he's the boss. He's the King of Kings. He's the God-man come into the world. And so what he says really matters. And I just wanted to ask this question. What do you think Jesus would say to Saru? Either the boy lost or the man grown up, maybe at the beginning of the film or later on. What would Jesus say to Saru? Maybe you can quote something. Maybe you just got a general sense of what he might say. I'm going to start, if it's all right. Let's go to Adam at the top of my screen now. Adam, what do you think Jesus would say to Saru?
I think he would say something like this. Even when you were lost and in danger, I knew you and I loved you. And I think he would say that joy that you feel at reuniting with your family is a sign and a shadow of the ultimate fulfillment of that joy, which is found in me, because I am the way, the truth, and the life. Something like that.
Wow, that's quite an incredible thing. I knew you even when you were lost.
Mm-hmm.
But that sense of joy can be found even more deeply in him. You say he's the way, the truth, and the life. A huge claim from Jesus, but Jesus says, "Look, I am the way. I'm the one who brings truth into the world. I'm the one who brings a way home. I'm the one who brings true life into the world." That's really helpful, Adam. Thanks for that. Let's go, Johnny. What do you think Jesus would say to Saru?
So I was actually going to say what Adam said.
Right.
But yeah, I think the same thing about lostness was what I was going to say. But I think also just like the little boy Saru, as he's just like running around in this big city, not really knowing what's going to happen, the sense of uncertainty. I think Jesus would just basically just tell him, like, do you know what, I've got you. I know the beginning and I know the end. You know, I've kind of been there with you since the beginning and I'm with you every step of the way. So like, even when you're feeling scared, when you're feeling, lost and not really knowing what's going to happen, like, I've got you. And obviously we know that it ends up in a better place. But yeah, it's just a sense of the fact that even what looks like a very dark situation and suffering, Jesus, like God can turn it around for something more beautiful. Something beautiful. So yeah, I think it's just telling him that, you know what, I've got you. I know what's going to happen. Don't be scared.
Yeah. No, that's so helpful. It's something you see in the stories all the way through the Bible as well. I was thinking some people might not know the story of Joseph, but even there you see what we often call providence. God's you intended it for evil, but I intended it for good, says God. Yeah. But God intended it for good, and you see just God's hand at work. Yeah, that's helpful. Holly, what about you? What do you think Jesus would say to a young or old Saru?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Adam and Johnny have said. I think just thinking specifically about the end and the reunion, like whilst it's so amazing that he's found his family, there's still that kind of air of sadness because his brother's not there. And so yeah, you kind of left questioning, has he found this true satisfaction that he's been like out searching for? But yeah, I was reading John's Gospel recently, and Jesus says, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." So it's just kind of saying like Jesus is like, he's the embodiment of like satisfaction, and he brings true and lasting satisfaction and freedom when the world doesn't. Yeah.
That's so helpful, and it's what we're made for, isn't it? It's what we're made for, and that's so good. Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I guess I should comment now, shouldn't I? I'm gonna be a bit cheeky and change my own question, if that's all right. Because as I was thinking about this question, what sprung to mind was not potentially what Jesus would say to Saru, but what Jesus might say to us. Because there's a story that bears some resemblance that I know Jesus shared in the Gospels, that bears some degree of resemblance to this story that is slightly different, and it's a story of lostness, and it's a story of hopelessness, it's a story of brokenness, it's a story of mess, and just hatred of one's own family as well. Loads of stuff going on, and Jesus told this story of a man who had two sons, and one of those sons said to his dad, effectively, I don't really care about you that much. In fact, what I care about mostly is your stuff. And so that will that you've been writing, I know what's in it. I saw the guy who came around to sort it out with you the other day. Could I have my bit now, please? And then I'm going to go, and I'm going to leave you, forget about you, ignore you, and I'm going to go and live the life of Riley. I'm going to go to the big city. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to forget about you. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to live a happy existence, and it's going to be great. He realizes that walking away from his dad, he in doing that, he becomes lost and he becomes hopeless. He ends up living in a pigsty. He doesn't get lost. He's not the victim of lostness. He makes himself lost. But then in that same story, Jesus talks about another son who stays at home. And yet the interesting thing about this son, as Jesus tells the story, is that this other son, though he stays at home with his father, he's just as lost in some sense as the other son. Because as I said before, what is home? Home isn't about simply a roof, it's about relationship. And this son stays home. But what this son misses out on is the real depth and joy of relationship with his dad. He doesn't care. He just wants everyone to know how great he is. And ultimately, he doesn't care about that depth of relationship with his dad. He just wants to know that what he's done has been recognized. He doesn't actually care about his dad. And so he's living at home physically, but he's just as lost. And what Jesus says is that there's one point where this son realizes, the first son who's gone away comes back, and he comes back to his senses, and he realizes, what have I done? I've left the one relationship that really matters. I've wandered away, and I did it myself. And I said, screw you. I don't want to know you. I'm going to do it my way. And look where it's left me. It's left me not only lost and hopeless, but in danger. And so he comes to his senses, and he comes back. And what is the response of the father? It's not to say, you stupid son, you're not just a victim of, like Saru, of getting lost. You've got yourself lost. He doesn't say that, but he runs. He's a Middle Eastern man, because Jesus is telling this story in the Middle East, and he runs, and he does something that many wouldn't, and he runs to the arms of this son and says, come home, and come home. And he says, and he would say the same thing to his other son, come home, come to me, come and enjoy the relationship with me. And to me, that's just the heart of the gospel story, another story of lostness, one where we as humans have wandered away from the God who loves us, who made us, who we are made for, and done it our way. And yet God says, here's this offer, that in your lostness, I'll come and find you, and I'll bring you back, and come back to me. And when you do, you can enjoy relationship with me. And it's all because of the gospel. Jesus says there's no guilt when you trust in me. It's been dealt with. I dealt with it when I died on the cross. So come home, come back to me. We'll celebrate. We'll have a big celebration as we talk about home. It's about relationship. It's about the celebration. It's about the joy and the party. Come home, come and enjoy it. And that's the story of the gospel for us. Come home to your Father who you're made for. Jesus has made it possible. He dealt with all the guilt and all of that. It's done with. So trust in Jesus. He's the way, the truth, and life. Come home to the Father. I think that's what Jesus would say to us. Another story of lostness. Johnny, Holly, Adam, thank you so much for what you said tonight. I just found it really insightful. And I guess one of the privileges of just knowing you guys as part of the church is that as Christians, you think about things deeply, you take life seriously, you're joyful people, you love life, you love films, but you also take life seriously and you think about things deeply, which is what people in our world want. Ultimately, they want people to do that. And so I really appreciate that for thinking through and just thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for whether you're on Facebook live stream, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're in Scarborough or somewhere else. Thanks for joining. We'd love you to connect again with Trinity Tuesdays. We still think about some of these big life's questions. There's two things that I want to tell you about that are coming up, as well as just checking us out. If you go on YouTube, Trinity Church Scarborough, you'll find what we do on Sundays. We live stream every week. So check that out. Connect with us. Go on our website, Trinity Church Scarborough. Get in touch if you've got more questions or you just want to carry on the conversation. We'd love to do that. But coming up in next Tuesday, I'm just going to share on your screen what we've got. Hopefully it's going to come up on our screens. Oops. Here we go. Coming up on your screens. Hopefully you can see this. We're looking at another big question. That C.S. Lewis quote I mentioned at the beginning. If Christianity is true, it is of the utmost importance. We've seen why it's so important tonight. But one of the challenges to whether it's important and truthful is this big question that people ask. Does religion cause violence? Are we better off without religion in the world? That's a big question, and I love this question, and I love it when people ask this question, and I hope that maybe you're someone who's asked this question or you know people that do. So do come back next week. We'll be here at the same time. We'll be hearing from Lee McMunn, one of the senior leaders at Trinity Church Scarborough, who's going to talk about that, and then there'll be a chance for you to ask questions or to make your opinion heard. So we'd love you to connect again with that. Does religion cause violence? If you've enjoyed us tonight thinking about a film, we have got another one coming up. We're going to be thinking about another film, At Eternity's Gate, a story of Van Gogh, a fascinating story, which again opens up loads of big ideas about life. So we'll be thinking about that one. That's coming up though in July, so a bit later. But come back next week. Does religion cause violence? Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks to my panel. Hope you've enjoyed tonight. Stay connected, and we will see you soon.